Hey everyone, today I'm going to say one thing I like and one thing I dislike about every realm in Dead by Daylight. Be sure to drop your own points also down below. Let's get into it. One thing I like about the MacMillan Estate is its consistency through the years, and its standing as the one realm to basically always retain balance. When I get a MacMillan map, I know at the very least the game is going to be on a pretty even playing field. With 5 maps within this realm, it's impressive that they're all good when it comes to balance. My dislike for this realm is probably that everything aside the main structure on each map is kinda boring. This realm is lots of basic trees and the same brick wall loops and tiles we've been staring at for years. It's not necessarily bad, but I equally don't find it particularly interesting visually. As the OG realm though, it's to be expected I suppose. One thing I like about Autohaven Wreckers is how its theme is incorporated into the map. Autohaven feels natural with its crushed cobbles and different vehicles being used as looping tools. The way the crusher or crane thing is made into a loop is pretty interesting, and same with the truck. Cars are incorporated into loops, with tire stacks and such. It really feels like a scrapyard, but still manages to make this not affect the flow of gameplay. My main dislike for Autohaven is the map variety, to be honest. Despite there being 5 different maps in this realm, they all feel far too similar. The only one that is starkly different is Gas Heaven, because of the big neon sign and huge car walls. Blood Lodge and AZHYMOVS resting place in particular feel near identical. The realm's drab green colour causes this blur between them somewhat, I feel. One thing I like about Coldwind Farm is the variety and detail of the main structures. One of the best products of the Coldwind reworks were the updates to the main structures. Despite these being bland and common types of structure, they each feel distinct and create this great ambience, which is very fitting for the realm as a whole. Abattoir has the cool windy fences and the horrible slaughter area. Thompson House has detailed and unique rooms, which flow well and also feel like a real house. Torment Creek goes in a completely different direction with its fallen and withered down silo. I'm not necessarily saying each of these is perfect for gameplay, but the visuals are great and feel unique, making each map distinct despite large visual similarity. Despite the brightness pulling away from the ambience of this realm, the structures really manage to even it out. One of Coldwind's main issues, and my dislike, is not even really the corn, because I don't think it's that bad, but more so that the corn typically sits very centrally in each map. This means for most of the maps, there is a full chain of loops going around the perimeter, with corn in the empty center, or sometimes a structure like shack or cow tree, which are both very strong. The only map in Coldwind that is largely unaffected by this is Rancid Abattoir, which is why I feel that's the best of the 5. Torment Creek isn't too bad for this too, I suppose. The only map I think the corn should be placed this way on is Rotten Fields, the map without a main structure. For the rest, it feels like the corn should reside more so in a corner, or particular quarter of the overall map. My main dislike of Crotus Prenn Asylum is actually the way both of the maps in this realm have rather strong central structures, with the decent surrounding areas. Father Campbell's Chapel doesn't suffer from this as much, but still, I feel having a large, multi-window, multi-level structure very centrally in a map just doesn't work out well, as it's typically far too accessible from almost any point. Having a structure on one end of the map I generally feel is better for balance. Quite a subjective one there, but that's how I feel about these 2 maps in the Crotus Prenn realm. My like for this realm would be the amazing visuals of the main structures. Both are super unique, and they have a ton of detail. When looking at the maps themselves, you can really believe what the lore is saying, rather than simply accepting it. I think that's very impressive, attaining that feel. What I like about Haddonfield is the idea of having a map take place on a whole street. That's a really cool idea. For gameplay, it's likely a tough one to design, but the setting of it being the full Haddonfield street is both unique from any other map structure and layout, but also a refreshing visual change. My dislike is mainly just the fences, for both their invisible walls and also their length. There's too many fences. They're too long and I hate that I can't jump over them. If you didn't know, Haddonfield is currently disabled until its rework, so we'll have to see how that turns out. I'm certainly looking forward to it. My main dislike of Backwater Swamp isn't even the size really, but it's more to do with how the space is used. Both maps have these awful edges to them that are empty and completely neglected. This gives each of the maps a strange feel, with a cramped center but useless and dead outer area, which although is extra space, isn't really useful for for either side. My like for Backwater Swamp is actually the different levels it has, and the overall shape of the maps. These maps have slopes everywhere, but then flatter areas, typically filled with more interestingly shaped things like the smaller boat. That's a weird point, I know, but I enjoy the more natural terrain. What I like about Léry's Memorial Institute is that it's one of the tensest maps when played, in my opinion. When I play Léry's and I'm doing something as simple as working on a gen, I feel on edge. It's a combination of the creepy sounds, the crackling of electricity, but also the layout of the map having so many corners, doors, and windows. I've been jump scared by killers I know are nearby on this map more times than I can count. And hey, it's great for that. My dislike for this map is that I find the repetition of the areas to be a bit boring and kind of dull. There's two interesting rooms, the central TV room and the office. Everything else feels very repetitive, and I think this is partly a product of it being indoors, as it's so windy and narrow. I feel it kind of needs to have clear distinction with its areas, I guess. Red Forest has one of my favourite colour palettes and general realm vibes out of them all. These maps have cool looking environments, with the big trees and the dreary atmospheres. Tonally, I just think these maps are spot on. My dislike for these maps, and the kind of obvious thing for them, is that they're just too big. Mother's Dwelling being the largest in the game, and Temple of Purgation being closer to average, but made worse by its large multi-level structure. These maps can still be on the bigger end, but at the moment they feel a bit too big, I think. My dislike for Springwood is the lack of exposed areas. By this I mean pretty much anywhere as Survivor you can be working on a gen and feel safe. There's not that area that's scary to be in, like out in the open on a MacMillan map say, or enclosed in Gideon Meat Plant's bathroom. On Springwood, basically every area with a gen has some kind of strong loop or structure by it. This is a detriment to both sides, because it weakens the killer, but for survivors it kind of kills the risk, I feel, which I do think is a key part of gameplay. You need those moments when you feel on edge. What I like about Springwood is the variety within the main structure. The main structure has a wide range of different eerie areas, both inside and out. Not the best for gameplay, but the variety of enclosed spaced and more open areas, connectivity between floors, and things like unique vault spots is creative for such a small area. It's compact, but it really is varied despite this. Something I like about Gideon Meat Plant is the very unique layout and shape of its one map, the game. The game is made up of several box-shaped rooms across its 2 floors, connected by staircases and also holes. It then further opens up when generators are completed. I just really like this very distinct look and layout. Despite being an indoor map, its upper level often feels like an exterior area. It has this nice combination of wide open, brighter spaces above, and darker, more claustrophobic areas below. What I dislike is the combination of too many pallets and not enough windows. This map has like no window vaults, the most consistent spawn being the useless one by the exit gates, and this map has pallets everywhere. And strong ones too. This makes looping on this map rather boring, as it's just W key, pallet drop over and over. Not enough windows, too many pallets. One thing I like about the Yamaoka Estate is that both of the map's main structures are some of the fairest and most balanced in the game. Family Residence has its structure off to the side, with fair and loopable but not unstoppable windows. Then Sanctum has risky areas, but rewarding if you manage to play them well as Survivor. And the area isn't strong enough to actively go against you as killer. Both of these structures can be helpful for both sides, and they're largely not obstructive to regular gameplay, but only complement it. My dislike for this realm is how cluttered it feels. I don't actually mind the strong areas to hide in, but I do mind that there is such a high frequency of them. This map is just absolutely stuffed with rocks, greenery, and actual structures. This leads to both maps being fairly confusing. On most maps I can orient myself almost instantly, but on the Yamaoka Estate maps, I typically don't know where I am, unless I'm next to the main structure. That could just be a me issue, I'm not sure. My main dislike for Ormond is how flat it is. This is Mount Ormond, yet the entire area is just flat. Like, completely. I know this is a weird gripe, but it feels like there should be a slant to the whole map, even if it's very slight, or potentially just larger hills comparatively to other maps. It wouldn't be so noticeable if the map didn't have so many large dead zones, but by having these, the map's flatness is very exaggerated, I guess. My like for Ormond is the snow. I love the snowy setting. Please do more snowy maps. It feels like a nice environmental shift without ruining the ambience or completely altering the gameplay. My like for Grave of Glenvale is that every loop feels fair. This is largely due to its arguably overabundance of breakable walls. Almost every tile has one, or multiple. However, their being there does make it so a loop can essentially be cut down for a killer, but equally that takes time, and so it often feels like a fair trade-off for what is largely quite good looping areas as Survivor. My dislike is actually kind of a specific area of the map, which is this back part, behind the saloon. I hate this whole area. It's this big dead zone typically, sometimes with one unsafe pallet. Gens don't spawn back there, and the only reason to ever really go back this way is if you need to hook someone in the basement, or you're saving someone from the basement. My dislike for Silent Hill is the lack of connectivity between floors. This map is almost a straight divide between its top and bottom levels, and when on the bottom in particular, it can be quite hard to reach the top. There's only two main staircases, and the breakable wall passageway in the bathrooms will almost never be opened, making it so a lot of the time you need to run a long distance to get to somewhere that's just above you. My like for Silent Hill is that it's clearly the realm that has the most love put into it. This map is filled with cool ambient features like the siren as soon as you spawn in, to the creepy rattling of bodies in cages, or the crying in the bathrooms. There's then the bigger things like the whole clock tower Easter egg, which is probably the coolest secret we've had in the game. My dislike for Raccoon City is quite obvious, but basically it's too big and it has too many floors. This map could really benefit from being split up a bit into different sections or floors. Everyone knows this map is a crazy multi-floor labyrinth. My like, which I think is also going to be pretty obvious, is that the visuals on this map are amazing. The structure itself and the detail is really well done. The way they adapted the RPD's look and layout from Resident Evil 2 is largely faithful, and the way windows are incorporated is creative. Forsaken Boneyard has a feature I really love, which is going to sound kind of odd, but it's these dips in the ground, which act almost like the opposite of a hill. I just really like these. They're a cool differentiation on the hills on most maps. It's a nice visual change, and they act more as a hiding point over a vantage point. My dislike for this map is that currently I've found that it has a lot of issues with collision. When I play this map, particularly as killer, I find if I shred with the demo, I collide with something invisible, or when I throw a hatchet, a bit of branch marginally connects with it. This map feels kind of rough around the edges still, and I think it is partly because of the map's rougher terrain and collapsed structures, making the edges unclear or slightly inconsistent. Maybe that's just me, but I've been having that a fair amount on this map in particular. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and be sure to drop something you like or dislike about each or every realm down below. Thanks, and goodbye.